It wasn't to be for Afghanistan. New Zealand just too strong. They registered their fourth win. They got top of the table at this 2023 ODI World Cup. Cricbuzz Live it is. Joy Bhattacharjya and Harsha Bhogle join me. Harsha, I've got to ask you, these days, what do you like more, dragon fruit or kiwi?
Dragon fruit. Dragon fruit, but I've got to learn to start having kiwi. Maybe I'll have kiwi with a lot of little masala on it during the Dharamshala game.
But another sample of what New Zealand have of the zone that they've come here with, and the first three wins were clearly not fluke. This team seems to have all bases covered, and they're doing it without their talisman Kane Williamson with the ball as well. Miserly Matt Henry started off really well. Lockie Ferguson with his pace picked up 3 for 19. Mitchell Santner, now the highest wicket taker at this stage. For a finger spinner to do that in white ball cricket is a story in itself. Afghanistan managing only 139 and they lose this one by a whopping 149 run margin. New Zealand top of the table with a massive net run rate boost as well. Did you expect Afghanistan to get bundled out like this?
No, I didn't. But I didn't expect them to win. We had that discussion during the mid-innings show that I didn't expect them to win. I think we might have gone as high as 80-20, 85-15 as well. I didn't expect them to win. I thought they made the wrong decision at the toss. It was very interesting listening to Dooley on commentary today, where he said he asked Jonathan Trott, why did you bowl first? And he says, that's how you win matches in Chennai. He said, but is that how you win matches? And I thought that was a very, very valid question. It doesn't matter how you win matches at the ground. It's how you win matches as a team. What is best for you as a team? And I still think if Afghanistan have batted first, even if they've made 190, 195, 200, the opposition is 110 for 4 and there are butterflies in the stomach. And then suddenly, as we saw with England, your footwork gets very leaden. We saw that in South Africa as well. Footwork gets leaden, doubts come in the mind. The same shot goes where it shouldn't go. But this batting performance from Afghanistan is one that they ought to feel hugely disappointed by because it just went nowhere. And how can you get somewhere if you don't know where you're going? They went absolutely nowhere this innings. And it's a performance they'll be very disappointed by.
Yes, take a look at that innings progression. They were never really in it in the first 10. They scored 28, lost their openers, and then from there on, in that 21 to 30 phase, yes, they scored the runs, but the wickets kept falling. And take a look at that one between 31 and 34.4. The second half of their innings just completely, was blown away. 18 for 5, 3 for Santner, was on top of his game. I was listening to Simon Dool when he mentioned that bit of his conversation with Jonathan Trott, the coach. Common sense must prevail over stats at times.
I was just looking at the internet and searching everywhere. I'm looking for that dew that some Afghanistan skipper said was there at the beginning of the match. Where was the dew? Do you see the way Santner's ball was turning?
Maybe it'll set in now after 9 p.m.
Ball was turning square. Santner, he turned one ball and the batsman just looked at it. He was looking at the crease. And I'm just thinking, same situation, exactly what Harsha said. Even at 190, 200 on the board, if Mujib and Rashid were bowling on that pitch at that time and a team was chasing, it would have made such a difference. I mean, this is a terrible call by Afghanistan. And I genuinely believe that it has cost them. I wouldn't say it has cost them the game because I think anyway New Zealand is the better side. But it's cost them a much better chance in this game. You've won the toss. If the opposition has won the toss, it's decided for you. Yep. You've won the toss. You had the choice of doing what you do well.
When relatively...
Joy. Are you planning to go to Parliament or something? You're thumping the desk.
Nikita Khrushchev once took out his shoe and did it in the UN. Hit the shoe on this thing.
So we need you here. The Parliament can be served.
Actually, I should have worn loafers for this. That just won't work with these shoes. Opening the laces takes too much time.
Sometimes, Harsha, can teams make the mistake of overthinking, overcooking things and perhaps, not think common sense?
No, we now have the extreme power of hindsight. Yeah. We now know the results, so we can all appear very clever. Yeah. But we did say right at the beginning that it seemed an unusual decision because that is how they beat England. That is how South Africa lost. The opposition goes and makes runs. The Netherlands made runs. South Africa lost early wickets and then they struggled. So that is Afghanistan's template to win. That your spinners use the conditions in India. If there is no dew, come what may on Indian pitches, in the second half, they will slow down, they will grip a little bit, because that is our character. Tahir Sadab doesn't become a chicken eater overnight. So that is our character, and character of our pitches. So that is what surprised me, that you tell yourself, what is my best chance of winning, and you play accordingly. They thought they would be due, and I can understand that. But I just wonder sometimes if all your calculation can be based on something that is as difficult to predict as due.
And also this batting card paints a really sorry picture for Afghanistan and the supporters. Does this card, Joy, tell you that win against England was perhaps an aberration, and the gap in the skill level of Afghanistan and the other bigger teams is huge, and we shouldn't get fooled by that one result against England?
No, I think I wouldn't go so far. Look, even against India, they scored 280.
Yep.
I think as their progression from a 20-over batting side to a 50-over batting side continues, I think somewhere they've reasonably tried to discover the template of how to score runs, reasonable amount of runs batting first.
Yep.
Chasing is a totally different thing. I mean, you look at averages, look at Gurbaz's averages, look at why is Virat Kohli considered such a great player? Why is Dhoni considered such a great player? Because chasing is a much more difficult thing than setting a target.
Yep.
It's always a more difficult thing. And that's what they've not matured to that level. The other thing, you walk in there at that situation, somebody like a Mujib knows one way to play. People are saying he's got runs. Of course, because the first ball he whacked for 4. That's the way he plays.
Yep.
That's not going to come off every day. And especially against an attack as smart and clever as New Zealand, with Santner and Ferguson operating, you're not going to get away with that.
They were 43 for 3, Harsha, in the 14th over. Could they have taken a leaf out of Phillips and Latham's book?
Did they have the skill to do it on that surface? Don't underestimate what Phillips and Latham did, and the skill with which they played, the little element of denial, especially from Phillips. And that was a fabulous partnership. That is why, if you remember, we said at the top, why don't New Zealand lose to lower ranked sides so often? I think we had a fabulous stat which said that New Zealand against lower ranked side, I think they have 100% record.
Yes.
Was an excellent stat, that. And that is because they peg their level. They will not go below that level. You'll hardly ever see New Zealand 68 all out or 92 all out, because they'll never go below a certain level. Where they go above that level is good enough to win is a different story, but they'll never go below that level. And so whether they're playing Scotland or Netherlands or Afghanistan or Ireland, they'll never drop below. And that's why they're a very difficult team to beat. They'll come in and be almost predictable. You saw Bolt and Henry today, almost predictable. And then Santner's just going through a purple patch. And see the difference in the fielding. You saw the cat Santner too.
Efficiency is such an underrated virtue as far as New Zealand cricket is concerned, isn't it?
Not only that.
I hope not. I hope efficiency is never an underrated virtue in life, in everything that you do, because too often in life these days we look at glamour, we look at page 3. No, let's not. I have very strong views on paid publicity.
But New Zealand go about their business so professionally, so clinically. They don't really spend too much bandwidth on who the opposition is. They do what they do.
I'll tell you a simple thing, what symbolizes New Zealand cricket. The second catch that Santner took.
Yeah.
Okay? Going backwards in the field, one-handed catch, 2 things after that. Finishes the catch, lands on his feet. He's up there immediately.
Yep.
He's not sprawled on the floor because he's physically fit enough to do it. Secondly, after that, celebration's well done. This is not a catch like that in many, even the Afghan team would be celebrated like the second coming of the Christ. I mean, it's a marvelous catch. But it's not. They take it for granted that they make difficult catches look easy. And good fielders do that. And that's what it is. It's clinical in the way they finish. They're not going to mess up the easy stuff. They're not going to mess up stuff like fielding, which is taken for granted. It's a rare time that you see that happening.
It's also rare to see a fast bowler like Trent Bolt on the boundary, diving, lunging, throwing quickly. It's something that a lot of other prima donnas can learn from.
Listen, Trent Bolt is a serious fielder on the boundary. Sometimes you remember the catch where he went back and touched the rope. But he's a serious fielder. You remember some years ago that wonderful one-handed catch on the boundary in the IPL? All the shortlists for the catch of the season. He's a serious fielder. And I don't think you'll find in that setup, I don't think you'll find a bad fielder, because you don't come through the system if you're not. Every young kid is an athlete anyway. You're either playing rugby or you're playing some outdoor sport. So you're a natural athlete at most things that you do. And it's very unlikely that you'll get a bad New Zealand fielder. But my question, if I had to do a post-match show today, would have been, what was your plan when you came out to chase? Was there a plan saying, okay, we'd like to be here at this point, here at this point. If we lose Gurbaz early, this is the plan. Because after a while, with Rahmat Shah and Shahidi and Umarzai, they just got marooned. They were in quicksand. They were just sinking deeper and deeper and deeper. And as you know, with quicksand, the more you flap, the deeper you go in. But they weren't even flapping. So it seemed very clear from the time the first or second wicket fell that this match was only headed one way.
Chasing is a different world, Joy. And does this result tell you that Afghanistan still have a long way to go on cricketing news?
No, absolutely. I think they have a long way to go. And look, I'm happy at what they did. They've done some very significant things in this tournament. And the only reason that I have such a strong opinion about what happened today is that you cannot blame the team for this. This is also a decision of the management. Yep. A decision to bat first or bat second is a decision that's taken with the coach and everyone before the toss happens. Yep. So my point is, I feel a little let down because I felt that that decision took away a lot of the strengths of the Afghan team. And all of us, watching them play their cricket, they play it in a very colourful way. They are good, happy team. They're good personalities. You see some really good cricketers out there. It's just that they didn't, by taking the decision they didn't give themselves a good enough chance. And I think that is our regret. And make no mistake, they have progressed. I mean, let this not take away from their defeating England. Yeah. They have had a very substantial win out there. And I'm sure they're going to look at this and say, perhaps we went down the wrong path where the tactics are concerned. They look at it again and say that, okay, perhaps we should play to our strengths instead of trying to look at their weaknesses. I think all that will happen. The regret comes from the fact that they didn't give themselves a good enough chance with their decision making.
The bowlers didn't make life easier either. I mean, this bowling card will tell you that it almost worked like the various pieces of an orchestra where everything works so beautifully in unison, Harsha. Everyone had a role to play and they did it perfectly.
And Glenn Phillips is the only one who didn't get a wicket, only bowled 3 overs. Even Rachin Ravindra picked up a wicket. There is an issue there with their fifth bowler, with Phillips and Ravindra, that better teams might be able to capitalize on. But remember, we said at the start, can they keep Henry and Trent Bolt away from wickets in the first 10 overs? They managed that for the first 6-7 overs, and then they lost 2 back-to-back, and they were never going to come back. I think Henry is bowling beautifully. Bolt, the ball swung a little bit, but he's got far too much variety to let that bother him. And then once Lockie and Santner came in the middle overs, they almost negated the need for the fifth bowler. Against tougher opposition, that fifth bowler could become an issue for New Zealand. But as of now, the top 4 are bowling so well that they're overcoming that.
Not sure if Matt Henry would have been the first choice had Saudi been fit at the start. But is it a story of how opportunities at the top level can liberate a player?
They can, but I also want to say that in this period, in this last 4 years from the last World Cup cycle, I think Matt Henry is their second highest wicket taker. So I think somewhere they are aware of the fact of what his abilities are. Saudi is a great bowler. Saudi is a very experienced bowler. But one of the things that New Zealand does very well, and they have done it throughout, and you've seen this in many cases, is they pick on form. They don't pick on reputation. Yeah. So they don't really care who you were, what you were. They pick on form. I think Henry would have got the chance anyway. I mean, he's the second highest wicket taker now after this match. And of course, Santner has gone to the top. And the two of them are looking at dominant pair, because what's happened is with Lockie, exactly as he said, with Lockie and Santner, that 11 to 40 period, they've got something very strong. So the only weakness is the remaining 10, which right now it's not yet mattered because they haven't yet hit the opposition. That kind of a batting opposition they haven't yet hit.
Also, Mitchell Santner, a finger spinner, at the top of the pile, has 11 wickets now in this World Cup, and they've got at least 5 more matches to go. Mitchell Santner, how surprised are you, Harsha, with these numbers?
A little bit, I'll be honest. I expected him to be a control bowler, not as much a wicket-taking bowler as he has emerged, which is fantastic because he's an extremely skillful bowler. But to be honest, it does surprise me. Maybe he'll be slightly pleasantly surprised himself. But it has a little bit. But in India, when the wickets start to grip a little bit, the finger spinner always gets more than the wrist spinner. Let's take a look at how many wrist spinners. I think once we come to the halfway point, that will be a good point to check. How much have the wrist spinners done and how much have the finger spinners done? Kuldeep is obviously going to be the torchbearer for the wrist spin, but generally, as the tracks start to wear a little bit, you'll find that the finger spinners will do much better. But Santner is bowling well. Rachin Ravindra's got a master in front of him to check. And no surprise, they played a little clip of Dan Vettori today, so he's walking in good footsteps.
Absolutely. You know, the other thing I was thinking, and this is one thing that, you know, really smart finger spinners do very well, which is that when the ball's turning a bit, if you remember, there's one ball that Santner just let rip, you know, hit the pitch hard and it turned. What that does, it puts doubt in the minds of the batsmen.
Yeah.
So after that, the wickets he got, the ball didn't turn that much. But once you've seen that much turn, the batsman, firstly, he won't jump out at you because he always thinks the spin will beat him and he's likely to get stumped. So those are the kind of factors that come into play when you put doubt. And I feel Santner is a master of his art in that way. Uses the crease beautifully. Plays on the minds of the batsmen. And I think he was absolutely superb today.
Lockie Ferguson brought the fear factor to the party. 3 wickets for him, gave away just 19 runs, and he did what we spoke about in that mid-show, used his pace, bounced them out as well. And remember, New Zealand play their next 2 games in Dharamshala, where he'll expect some help from the surface, Harsha.
Yes, he will. That was always going to be the tricky game for India. Should India have scheduled a game against New Zealand in Dharamshala, where high atmosphere, the ball will always move around a little bit. The tracks are always amenable to that kind of bowling. But don't forget that India have a pretty decent seam and swing attack. India does too. So that will be a good contest. But yes, New Zealand will enjoy playing there.
What do you make of Lockie? You need someone like that, right? Someone who will make things happen with pure pace.
No, absolutely. Enforcer in the middle. What we were talking about again, 11 to 40, you need enforcers. And see, it's fortunate for New Zealand that they're getting away on starts. They're getting wickets up front, and therefore, this is a supplementary effort. There are going to be days where their top 2 bowlers, you know, Bolt has not given them, but Henry's always given them wickets. They don't get wickets, in which case the pressure will really be here. And I think Lockie is important for them. Again, Lockie is more important in situations like this where bowlers haven't placed that 145 plus. Against a really good batting side, he could go as well. But that's the risk that they take, and they know what they're doing. So they're very sure that they'll use Lockie like a hammer against opposition, which is not great. I'll be interested in seeing how, of course, he'll play in Dharamshala, but if they play against an England on a pitch which is slightly turning, not England, sorry, in Australia, say, do they play Lockie? I'll be interested to know how they...
I'm sure you guys and girls can hear some music in the background in Harsha's frame. Navratri celebrations around his new house. And I'm sure there's a party going on in New Zealand as well as they go top of the table with their 4th win. India now...
By the way...
Go on, Harsha.
By the way, there's enough Gujarati people doing in New Zealand, so there'll be serious Garba parties going on in Auckland and Wellington.
And may it continue as well, because New Zealand are in the mood to do something special in this World Cup. That points table will tell you. So plus 1.923, a very, very healthy net run rate. India, the other unbeaten team. Harsha, at what point do you see 1 or 2 or 3 teams moving away from the pack?
Yeah, when does the Q come against your name? We talk about that in the IPL a lot. Yep. The Qs and the Es. The Q and E comes together on ocean liners, but on a table you want the Qs, not the Es. Is 6 games good enough? I don't know if I've not done the exact calculation, but I'd imagine 6 wins should be good enough for a Q.
I think 6 wins should definitely be... Look, there are situations where 6 won't get you there, but those are all mathematical situations.
Last time New Zealand qualified with 5.
Yeah, I think 6 should get
5 and a rain-affected game. So they had an odd number of points.
Yeah,
so they
11.
5 plus. Remember, the India-New Zealand game was washed out in Nottingham. So they qualified with 5 plus 1 rain-affected game. I'd like to think 6 should be good enough, especially if you have some of these contra results taking place. You know, let's not call them upsets. Let's call them contra results.
Well, New Zealand are yet to play India in Dharamshala. Then they play Australia in Dharamshala, followed by a game against South Africa in Pune. I'm checking all this on the Cricbuzz app. And then they play Pakistan on the 4th of November in Bengaluru. 4 big games. How many of those do you think they can win?
But that's the point. They'll be looking at this and saying that, look, other than the England match, they've had an easy run. They've had the easier opponents. The point is, they could easily be 4-all at the end of the next 4 matches as well.
Yeah.
But what they'll be telling themselves is, let's take it one at a time. Let's get across the line twice and we're done.
Yep. Their last game is Sri Lanka again in
which they'll
Bengaluru.
fancy their chances. So they say if we can get across once or twice across the lines across these teams, we are done because they will fancy their chance against Sri Lanka.
Well, India are now at 2. They've been toppled from the top spot by New Zealand. Before we go to the preview, let's give you a look at that points table once again to figure where Afghanistan are. The high of that win against England has been wiped off, sadly, for Afghanistan after this massive loss against New Zealand. They find themselves at number 9. Just that one win, one massive win. But 3 losses. Afghanistan clearly, Harsha, have a long way to go before they can come to a big world event as a powerful force.
Yes, and I think they'll do that faster in 20 overs cricket than in 50 overs cricket, where in 20 overs cricket they've got the batting to be able to create an impact, whereas I'm not quite sure in 50 overs cricket they have the batting to create an impact, and that is why they must bat tension free as often as possible, bat first and put those runs on the board. But I'm not sure they have the batting at this stage. I'd like to see how far the Dutch go, because their batting seems to be a little more resilient and their bowling is very honest. So I'd like to see how far the Dutch go, because they've been very impressive. But Afghanistan, I think their limitations were exposed today by New Zealand.
Parthiv Patel has a theory on why not coming through the qualifiers is not helping their cause. They need more game time against bigger teams as well.
Absolutely. And I think that would have helped Netherlands enormously. The big confidence of winning that super over against the West Indies, then that big run chase against Scotland that took them through, and just the sheer belief that they could go through without 3 or 4 of their main players, strictly speaking, who should have been released, but in reality it doesn't always work that way. So that would have given them enormous confidence. So yeah, I think if Afghanistan had played and come through, then it actually would have helped them. It's a good point from Parthiv.
Well, the World Cup caravan moves to Pune in Maharashtra in that stadium, which has no roof. But I suppose the excitement will go through the roof when India take on Bangladesh, a side that's troubled India. Remember, since 2019, India played only 4 ODIs against Bangladesh, and India have won just 1. It's a team that India will be wary of, especially the left arm spin. I'll come to Joy first. Joy, is there a box that India haven't ticked so far in this World Cup?
I'll just have to say that, given the fact that Shubman just returned from dengue, hit a couple of good shots. But, I mean, Shubman Gill is one of our talismans. He's the rising star of this team. And they'd like him to get a few runs, as the tournament goes on. Because, obviously, missing a couple of matches hasn't helped. So, they'd want Shubman Gill to get into form a bit. Their Shardul Thakur / Ashwin story, we want to see which way it turns out, because that's the one thing that people are not decided on. Rest, if you look at it, given what Siraj has already done, remember one thing, and I know you're going to raise that point, I don't think India will experiment. Even if they do, do you play Shami for a match? I don't think they look at it that way. I think they'll say, this is it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So the only thing remains Shubman getting a few runs and deciding where and how. Which one do they go with, Shardul or Ashwin?
Harsha, it's not a big ground, short boundaries. Does that discourage India from looking at Ashwin for this game?
I don't know what the surface is going to be like. If it's going to grip even a little bit, then they won't mind playing Ashwin. How many left-handers there? There's Shakib in that side. Look at how many left-handers there are in the Bangladesh team. But I think it'll all depend on the surface. If the surface can grip a little bit, then I think they'll look at Ashwin. But at the moment, with Hardik bowling well and Jadeja bowling well, they don't actually need that much of Shardul. So, not a lot of left-handers.
Shanto,
right?
There's not too many.
So it might well be worth. Look, it's interesting to see how often Shardul has bowled 10 overs under Rohit. The other day, he only bowled 2 overs. I get the feeling, and I could be wrong, I get the feeling that he's not very confident about Shardul. And so if he isn't, then they might well go with Ashwin. There's a point of view that Ashwin's also the better batter, but I think it'll all depend on the conditions. I would always want to have Ashwin in my side, given I already have 3 seamers and I have a wrist spinner and Jadeja in case Ashwin is not working out.
Let's take a look at the Bangladesh squad once again to figure what they can do, because Shakib Al Hasan, their captain, is unlikely to be in action. They will take a call on his availability tomorrow. He's got an injury in his left quad. Does Mehdi Hassan come back for you, Harsha? And how do you go about replacing or filling that hole in case
No,
Shakib
you
doesn't
don't.
play?
You don't fill the Shakib hole at all. You just live with it. You cannot fill that hole because you're losing 10 overs and a top five batter. So you don't fill that hole. You just make good with what you have. They might call Mahedi back. The other Mahedi will walk into the side anyway because he's emerging very well as an all-rounder. But if Shakib is not around, it just increases the load on Shanto, on Liton Das, on Mushfiqur Rahim. It just increases the load on players like those. I'd like to see some of the younger players come good. People like Tanzid Hassan and all. They haven't exactly delivered yet. Tawhid Rida down the lower middle order. He hasn't got as many runs. So if Bangladesh have to make a big move, they'll require one of these youngsters to stand up.
Right, runs haven't come. They won their first game, Bangladesh, and then they lost their second and the third. They're desperate for a win. Runs at the top are an issue. Would you get Mehdi Hassan Miraz to open the innings? Is that an option?
That's something I definitely look at. But the other thing I would look at as an attacking option is whatever it is against India with the number of right-hand batsmen we have, you need a left-arm spinner. And I'm really saying Naseem Ahmed, they've got to find a way to play Naseem Ahmed. I don't know exactly, the problem is that if you take Naseem Ahmed as a straight swap for Shakib, do you weaken your batting too much? Yeah. Because that's the problem that they're going to face. Mehdi Hassan is a better batsman. But I think not going in an India match without a left-arm spin bowler is something, because all Indian batsmen traditionally, whatever it is, we've been regarded as great players of spin, but if you look at the record, we haven't played left-arm spin very well of late.
Just a quick...
I agree.
Sorry, go on.
I agree. I think they should find a way of playing a left-arm spinner, not just standard off-spin. India don't play a left-hander till number 7. So just having off-spinners is not much good. But again, just to come briefly back, I'm just looking, there's 3 left. If Shakib does play, there's 3 left-handers in the top 6. In the top 6-7, that makes a pretty good case for playing Ashwin.
Right, a look at the points table. Let's figure where Bangladesh are after losing those 2 games. They opened the World Cup after winning against Afghanistan. Bangladesh are at 3 losses in a row. Joy, that will be difficult for Bangladesh, because to come back after losing 3 is tricky.
Yeah, I think, look, they just are a team at this point. Again, as I said, we've discussed this. They're in transition. This is that Shakib generation. Mushfiqur, Shakib, they're still there. The only thing is that they have a decent bowling attack. I think their batting, they need somebody like Liton to have a Shakib-like tournament in 2019. They haven't. Remember, last time they did okay because Shakib had an amazing tournament, 600-odd runs. Nobody has given them that kind of runs out there. They need that.
Yes, they play South Africa next, followed by Netherlands. So it's going to be quite an interesting one for Bangladesh. They need a win. They need runs from the top of the order. Harsha, players to watch out for you, 1 each from both teams.
Yeah, no, I've always liked Liton Das as a player, but he's just going through a dull patch. I hope he's not another of those wonderful talents from Bangladesh that don't become the player that they can become. But I just think going into the tournament with a lot of runs, he was holding up their side. He was an integral part. They have to get Shanto making runs, but also making big runs. Not just a 30, 40, but getting big runs, especially if Shakib is not around. If Shakib is not around, then Shanto must stand up. And as Joy said, they must find a left-arm spinner to rise to the occasion. So, yeah, to me, Shanto will be the key. And I think down the order, Mushfiqur Rahim, because they'll need that experience. And he's someone who's a fighter, is an irritating fighter, but he's done well.
And don't bowl short at Rohit Sharma?
Don't bowl short at Rohit Sharma. And if you do bowl a ball that's marginally around waist, I don't remember it for the next 8
weeks. That scar hasn't healed yet. Joy for you, players to watch out for.
Look, I like Tuscan because I think he does something for them, for the Bangladesh bowling attack. And I think he gives them a wicket-taking upfront pace bowler, and I think they haven't had that for a while with him and Shariful. For once, that attack is looking, the fast bowling attack is looking decent, with Mushfiqur, with Mustafizur following. And for India, I'd just love to see Shubman Gill get a few runs up front.
Harsha, your India player?
Yeah, let's go very briefly on what Joy said. It's not always that you see 3 very decent quicks all playing together in Shariful, Fiz and Tuscan. And then, of course, if they have Mahidi and Shakib and another, then the bowling gets complete. So, as I said, Shakib will a big miss. I think he will use every opportunity to play. For India, I think Joy is absolutely spot on. India need Shubman to get going. And he's at 4 days, and it's a young athlete's body. Those recover much more than elderly presenters sitting at home. Recover much faster. He's had many more days over me, though. He's had many more days over me. But if Shubman can get a big score, it'll make a huge difference. I think he likes playing in Pune. The ball traditionally comes on. It's good carry in Pune. So I think that is the key there.
There was a big roar at the Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad when Rohit Sharma said Shubman Gill is back. And I can promise you there'll be as much of a roar when you hear the words Harsha Bhogle is back, and may it happen very soon. But before we say goodbye to you guys, the answer to Joy Factor.
Okay, I love this. And this is, of course, a person. Which cricketer reached double figures with the bat for the first time in his 36 tests, but has a video on YouTube about batting that has 375,000 views. And it's, of course, Chris Martin of New Zealand.
Wow.
And Chris Martin of New Zealand is an amazing. I think his batting average is 2.6 or so. There's this thing that, you heard about rabbits with the bat, okay? So one of Chris Martin's nickname is Ferret, because ferrets go after rabbits also. So when rabbits finish, ferrets start. So that's Chris Martin for you. And but a fun guy, and that's what they made a video about batting, and he said, I have to appear in it. It's a spoof, obviously, but he's a cool guy. He could laugh at himself, and that's something we all need to do.
Who's the winner? Let's find out the name of the winner so we can get him a thumbs up from Joy. Sachin Shelar. Well done, Sachin. On getting this one right, he gets a thumbs up from Joy, and from Mr. Bhogle. Start from home, sir. Thumbs up. Well done. So we're done for the day. It's been a terrific performance from New Zealand, and I want to leave you guys with one line on behalf of all Harsha Bhogle fans. I hate mosquitoes. One more line. I hate dengue. Okay, may it not happen to anybody on
It's okay.
this.
There's worse things. There's worse things happening. There's worse things happening in the world. There's people going through much worse. I'm very comfortable. I'm sitting at home recovering. So life could be much worse.
All right, we hope to see Harsha Bhogle on air very soon on commentary as well in the Cricbuzz studio. But for now, thanks so much, Harsha. Thanks so much, Joy. It's been fun. We will see you at 1:30 p.m. tomorrow on Cricbuzz Live. Good night.